It appears to me that initially, looking at the haloed life of many avatars and masters, we may be negative in our orientation, in that we may be thinking that we are all very small people, whereas the avatars and the masters, they're all exalted people, and that what was possible for them is only a dream for us, and such a thing will never happen to us, such a spiritual awakening or a spiritual blossoming or a spiritual gift, which we consider them to be in possession of, and that will not ever happen to us. Now, this I think is a very worldly perception, because you've done a very erroneous thing, not from my perception, but from the perception of all the masters, because none of them is going to agree with this posture which we take, that the masters are all exalted and that they are already in possession of some Himalayan gift, and that we are never going to get this in our small little lives. Nobody will agree with this. And it is not that the masters were born in the cradle of truth to begin with. For some, like for Ramana Maharshi at the age of 16, suddenly there was an awakening to his immortal nature. But if you look at other masters like Krishnamurti, like Nisargadatta Maharaj, and going back 1 century earlier to the lives of the great Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa and to Sri Aurobindo, and to many others both in the Eastern and in the Western world, you will see that the master's life was never an exponentially rising curve. Rather, it was often 2 steps forward and 1 step backward. And they had their own share of suffering, which was in no small measure. And they had to also discover and be delivered from the world of Maya into the world of the Atmic light. So you cannot begin with the premise that the masters had special gifts which made their quest all the easier, and by contrast our quest all the more difficult because we don't have those gifts. I think it's a wrong premise, and none of the masters are going to concur with us in this outlook. I think this question is the whole idea of the question: why do we have to invest so much of effort in order to go somewhere to some utopian heaven, for example? Let's say that the self perceives the whole quest in that vein. I think it's an ill-posed question, because if we look at man's life in the so-called secular world, in the mundane world of questing for bread and wealth and name and fame, and then becoming fulfilled in the pleasure seeking, then we will find that everywhere there is an effort. But then we may not be sufficiently aware of that effort, because we may be thinking only of the pleasure, the final pleasure which we are going to get. But look all around us and you will see, as the Sanskrit saying goes, kashte phale. Now, without effort, you are not going to get any fruit. And the Gita is very eloquent, most eloquent on this, because the Gita is saying that do not focus your mind and your consciousness on the fruit of action. Just do everything as an offering to the divine. And well, of course, that may come only because of spiritual maturity. And when we begin the inner journey, we may not actually have the spiritual maturity. We may have only a self-centered orientation, but doesn't matter. We have that self-centered orientation even in all our material quests. And then when we start paying attention, we find that we understand more and more every time the page turns and we discover something more. And then finally we may float into the heaven of beatitude. That's how it is in all our material quests, and it's not going to be any different in the quest of Amanaska Yoga, and we have got to bring in diligence, we have got to bring in seriousness, we have got to bring in dedication, and without that our learning will be sloppy and inadequate. And after that, the good news is that it is not that there is a self very impatient and just running on its feet and hoping to grant some fruit which it thinks is its reward because the self is going to be liquidated anyhow. So there is no one who is going to be the enjoyer of the fruits of action even. So our business is only to pay attention to all our difficulties after we turn inward, to study the suffering, to study the origin of suffering. Like the Buddha and the Krishnamurti, they place so much emphasis on that. And then we will see that you will discover everything in the course of time. We need a little bit of patience, but the journey is very interesting. Why? Because it's a very original journey, it's a very authentic journey, and our journey is not like the journey of anybody else. So in that sense, it's going to be very fulfilling because it's an original journey in which the rasa or the essence is fully alive from beginning till the end.